Thank you for joining us today for the March Stevens Venture Center talk. This month, we're very pleased to have Kamien, CEO and founder of Mind Alliance, joining us to talk about the importance of market intelligence for startups. Mind Alliance Systems is a New Jersey-based company that drives innovation strategy for leading global law firms and legal departments and is building a market intelligence software platform. David and his team re-engineer processes, design software, and deliver training. Mind Alliance offers their unique AI-powered research platform called MindPeer that delivers news alerts, newsletters with insights about companies and their legal, business, technological, and political environments. Prior to founding Mind Alliance, David was editor at McGraw-Hill, where he produced 2 editions of a handbook on Homeland Security. He was also Homeland Security Specialist at a subsidiary of Marsh & McLennan and served as CEO at DGK, a Homeland Security management consulting firm, where he consulted to Honeywell, Marsh, Motorola, Northrop Grumman, Raytheon, and Siemens, among others. He has a law degree from the College of Law and Business and a BA from the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. Please join me in a warm welcome for David.
Thank you very much. Thanks, David. Good afternoon. It's great to be here. Thank you very much for spending some time this afternoon with me. As Adrian said, I'm David Kamien. I'm the CEO and founder of Mind Alliance Systems. We're based here in New Jersey, and we have people in India and in Greece and other countries. And we, as Adrian said, focus on helping primarily law firms and legal departments with innovation and with knowledge management challenges. I'm not going to turn this into a pitch about our company or about our software. I think you got the main idea. This is an area that we work in, and we hope to share some of the insights we've gained over the years with you, so that if one day you start a company, and I think some of you already have started companies, you'll be able to implement some of the insights we've gained. So before we get into the lecture or the presentation itself, I'd like to know how many of you consider yourselves entrepreneurs right now? Okay, great. So I've spoken to a few of you very, very briefly because when I finish the presentation, I'd like to offer these young entrepreneurs a present. And the present or gift will be to leverage the wisdom of this room to help them with their market intelligence challenges. It's not that often that you get to tap into, what are we now, 40, 50, 60 people? So this way they'll hopefully benefit from it. How many of you have already studied market intelligence as part of your business studies or any other program? So it seems like no one has studied it, and it's a new topic, which hopefully means that today will be interesting for you. So today we're going to start by defining market intelligence. What is market intelligence? Some of you may have heard of business intelligence, competitive intelligence. What's market intelligence? We'll talk about why market intelligence is critically important for entrepreneurs. And finally, how to make market intelligence a core process in your startup or really any kind of company. But we'll put some emphasis on the particular challenges that startups face developing market intelligence. So let's begin with the definition. Market intelligence is information that's structured and analyzed and refined and turned into insights so that you can make decisions about your company and its products and its strategy. If you are curious, I've created a mind map where I've mapped out a lot of different aspects of market intelligence. And I don't want to spend too much time on the definition, but I do want to distinguish it from some other terms you've heard. So business intelligence is often focused inside. It's analyzing data that the company has about its own operations and its own metrics. Market intelligence is outwardly focused. It's focused on the business environment and the technological environment, the cultural environment, the political environment, And in a certain sense, competitive intelligence is a subset of market intelligence because it focuses on competitors or potential competitors. Market intelligence, to my mind, is much broader, and it is unfortunately not usually taught in a robust manner in even in MBA programs, but there are exceptions to that, of course. So you probably all have enjoyed TV shows featuring, spies and intelligence analysts and CIA and NSA. And this slide is actually taken from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, which I knew wouldn't have a copyright issue with my using it. And it describes the 6 steps in the intelligence cycle. I'm not going to read every word, but I want to give you a sense of the key parts of this cycle. The cycle begins with planning and direction. And more or less, that's about figuring out what the decision makers need to know. And that really is what provides the impetus for the phases that follow. The second phase in this cycle is called collection. And here, you're gathering the data you'll need to analyze, or that machines will analyze, or combinations of humans and machines will analyze. And it quite possibly is still in very raw form. And here are some of the ways one would gather information for market intelligence. There are many, many ways. This is not a complete list. And some of them are very technology-based or technology-enabled, like scraping websites. And some involve manual, old-school research, like going to a library or talking to people, watching videos, logging into your competitor's website, reading regulatory material. So there's certainly no perfect subset of these that fits every entrepreneur. And maybe one of the exercises we can go through later on when we have our volunteers step up would be having everyone shout out what are the best ways each of the entrepreneurs in the room that will participate in the exercise, what are the most valuable ways they should go about collecting information. So everyone memorize this list. Okay. The next phase is processing and exploitation. So the raw data doesn't tell a story. It doesn't always jump out at you what's important for our company to consider in its go-to-market strategy, in its product strategy. So that processing may be pretty low-level enhancement of the raw data. It could be pasting it into a spreadsheet manually and putting columns so that you can compare apples to apples. It could be more sophisticated analysis where you're running natural language processing algorithms on unstructured text and you're doing sentiment analysis. So there are many different types of processing and exploitation. And then we come to the analysis and production phase. And although technology can do a lot to facilitate analysis, I don't believe that people are replaceable as analysts because people can imagine scenarios. People can imagine counterfactual histories. People can reason because we have models of the world and how the world works. And when a drug company gets approval for phase 1, probably phase 2 is going to start. Machines need to be taught a lot in order for them to support reasoning or automate reasoning. So people are essential in the process. And as Garry Kasparov, the chess champion, has said, the combination of people, process, and AI is going to beat any 2 of those 3, and certainly any 1 of those 3. And then the intelligence is disseminated. It doesn't help anyone if it sits on a shelf or in a hard drive. So it needs to get to the decision makers, and then there should always be a feedback loop where the intelligence and the intelligence process gets refined. I want to recommend a very, very good book, which is free, and you can download on the CIA website, called Curing Analytic Pathologies. And the reason I consider it a very valuable resource is because it doesn't just say, as other books do, like the Strategic Analysis Cycle, here's how you do analysis, but it also tells you here's how it could go wrong. So why is market intelligence so important for entrepreneurs? And clearly it's important for established companies as well. Market intelligence helps you understand your business environment. I mean, imagine you did not understand the opportunity in a profound way. You didn't know who your competition was. You didn't realize that you have competition. And most young entrepreneurs, in a certain sense, are hoping that there is no competition, whereas other people realize that the fact that there is competition is an indication that there's a market for what you're offering. So the market intelligence helps you understand those things, and it helps you position your product. You need to know a lot about the business environment in order to be able to tell a story about how your product adds something unique that other products do not, or your service adds something unique that other firms do not provide. And without an understanding of your market environment and intelligence about that market environment, both qualitative and quantitative intelligence, you're going to have a very hard time raising investment capital. No VC is going to invest in an entrepreneur who doesn't know the basic fundamentals of their market. And the details are in that mind map, but we can cover some of the basic categories of information. Why don't we make this interactive? So let's start with the first row. What information would be useful to an entrepreneur who needs to understand their market environment? Anyone in the first row? Go ahead.
Market value, like market value, the total value of that market.
The total value of the market. Good starting one. Yeah.
Target position in the market.
Target position in the market. Where do you want to fit in? Okay, next row. Any examples of types or categories of information that are important?
Number of users, potential number of users.
Sure. Good one. Yeah.
What geographic areas you should focus your marketing in.
Absolutely. You're not necessarily going to sell it in the middle of the desert somewhere. You need to pick where you're going to focus. Anywhere? Next row. Anyone? Of course, who your competitors are. Next row.
How much the market's growing every year.
Growth rate of the market and its various segments. Okay, anyone from the back?
Who's in the market?
Right, who are the players? Who are the key players? Who are the dominant players especially? We know from our own personal experiences in our business that dominant players will do things like give away products for free and cross-subsidize from one product to the next. They can afford it. It's very hard to compete with free. Very hard, right? Especially if they're already using all the other stuff that they're paying for, and the free stuff is really nicely bundled with the stuff they're already paying for. Very difficult. So you have to know those kinds of things. And they don't advertise them. Competitors don't necessarily put on their website, you can have this product for free if you buy these other products. You won't see that on the website. So that's why market intelligence is so important. Now, if it's so important, and show of hands, is there anyone here who's not convinced that market intelligence is important? And don't be afraid. You can defend the position. I'm open to a debate. Okay, so we all unanimously agree, all of us, that market intelligence is important. Now, do you think all entrepreneurs take it seriously and invest in it?
No.
Right, they don't. So let's figure out why. And I'm not claiming that I have listed all the reasons here. So another little exercise we could do is maybe we can think of some other reasons. It might be useful, because then we could try and figure out mitigations for those reasons or workarounds for those reasons. So one reason, obviously, is, frankly, ignorance or lack of awareness. You don't know that market intelligence is important, and you're probably unlikely to know that if you don't even know what market intelligence is. Well, no, none of you have an excuse anymore. You know what market intelligence is, more or less. Time and money. Markets change all the time. New players come in, new regulations are passed, new technologies become cheaper. So the market is changing all the time, And unfortunately, what that means is you can't just do market intelligence once, collect a lot of data, analyze the data, make some decisions, and you're finished. You have to sustain the market intelligence. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to sustain it at the same level all the time, but it needs to be sustained, and that costs money and time, which entrepreneurs are always short on. And some of the premium resources that would actually answer your questions right then and there, which you'd have to reproduce through a lot of manual labor, they're expensive, right? Premium data subscriptions are expensive, especially if they're sold by big companies that have dominant market position, let alone monopolies. So that's another reason. And finally, and this is an area I want to delve into a little bit, there's the psychological reason or reasons why people would not take market intelligence seriously. It could be fear. You don't want to know the truth. You're in love with your idea. You have told your friends about it. You think it's awesome. You think you're going to change the world. And the last thing you want to know is that you've made some really basic mistakes in your reasoning. So it could be out of fear that's not conscious. It could be overconfidence, and you are dismissing the evidence that is sort of on your peripheral vision. It could be a whole variety of things. Let's see if anyone has any other reasons or can think of other reasons why an entrepreneur wouldn't take market intelligence seriously. Anyone who's ready, raise your hand and I'll call on you to surface any other reasons.
So it sort of overlaps, but I think one of the biggest challenges to the startups are prioritizing the very, very limited resources that they have. And I think in the scheme of things, when it's part of making a choice between, am I going to, consult an accountant and get my structure set up with respect to what the costs are of manufacturing versus do I gather intelligence about whether there's a market, the practical is always going to win out.
That's a really interesting point, which I think will open up a very useful debate. I'm going to circle back to that after we hear a few more.
I think it's a lot of times it could be underinvested because you may not know, the entrepreneur may not know how much intelligence they need. So you can figure out, I have a market, it's X amount of money, but is that the real market? It's kind of disguising itself as the correct answer, but really you need to dive deeper into more direct numbers, more segmented numbers.
Go ahead.
It's an easily skippable first step in the current culture of like hackathons and things. No one's going to a hackathon and saying, oh, is this idea actually good for a market? They're convinced that like they have a good pitch and they think their idea is good, that they're going to be able to make it work.
It's another good example. Go ahead.
It's also a very abstract notion. You might believe that you know your market or you know your business, but it takes time to actually narrow down what you are trying to sell, what your value proposition is, and as you get into knowing more about your business and diving more into your startup or any service that you are providing, you are going to discover that the market is actually much deeper than what you were actually seeing at first.
Absolutely right. So it was interesting. What was your name?
Marianne.
Marianne. Marianne mentioned how an entrepreneur, and I imagine you were thinking in the early stages, is more focused on setting up the structure and dealing with accounting and whatnot than thinking about market intelligence. But reflect for a moment on the consequence of making big mistakes in market intelligence. You don't need a structure if there's no opportunity. You don't need a lawyer or an accountant or a bookkeeper or an office or a new computer or 3 more coders if there's no opportunity, or if you don't know how you're going to pursue the opportunity, or if you're going to run into a competitor that's going to crush you, or if 10 minutes ago a startup was funded out of Silicon Valley with a $10 million Series A round that has 10 PhDs from Google that's doing exactly the same thing. So if you if you think about it, market intelligence is one of the most practical things that you need to think about because it lays the foundation for what you're trying to achieve. Now, there was another point mentioned about essentially knowing what you know and knowing what you don't know. The way I like to draw that is this is everything that could be known about your market. Of course it's infinite, okay? Now, this is what you really should know now to move your company forward, okay? There's some subset here of what you know already, okay? And then there's some other subset of what you know you need to know, but you don't know it yet, okay? And that leaves a lot of room for the unknown unknowns of things that you should know about your market, but you don't realize that you need to know them, and you certainly don't know them, okay? So part of the process that an entrepreneur has to go through is to figure out how these, what this looks like for them. Now, how do you do it? I mean, what practically do you need to do? And that's where I want to go next. So off the bat, I want to say it's not buying a piece of technology. It's not necessarily having one person focus on it and that's it. It's not necessarily buying a data set or collecting data. It's a whole series of things. The people, the process, the technology, and the data have to work together. So to put that into a visual, imagine Matt has a startup and he decides today, here and now, that he's going to be serious about market intelligence. Okay? The people aspect of it might be he self-appoints himself to be the acting head of market intelligence. He's the CEO, but they can't afford a full-time market intelligence person, so he's going to be the market intelligence person. Doesn't mean he does all the work, but it means he's accountable for making sure that market intelligence is a reality in his company. Okay? Process. The process, it could be multiple processes, could be every month or every quarter, he's going to think about the most critical decisions that he needs to make for the company and what intelligence he needs in order to make those decisions. Those decisions have to be informed by data. The data has to be gathered, processed, analyzed, and so forth, as we discussed. Governance. What does governance have to do with anything? Well, it has a lot to do with it. Market intelligence is not an end. Smart decisions and effective execution is the end. If you allow yourself to govern your company and make strategic decisions without market intelligence, you have a governance failure, which is why boards exist. A board holds an executive or executive team accountable for making informed decisions, and they want to know the basis for those decisions. And market intelligence is what needs to substantiate a decision. What we see, sadly, is decision makers often pay lip service to intelligence. They want it, but they won't make it a continuous process in their organization. So how do you change the culture of your organization? Well, in a startup, you're in a golden period. You don't have a culture. You're 2 or 3 people. Now's the time to establish that practice of backing up your decisions with data from which you've drawn some kind of conclusion, and you can treat it as a hypothesis. It doesn't mean that you need to freeze it and say, we're not changing, we're just going to do that because we know there are no competitors in this market. Obviously, you're going to revisit that and treat a lot of it as a hypothesis. But you don't want to just throw around the word hypothesis because it's cool and it makes you sound humble and open to change. You actually have to look for information that proves or disproves your hypothesis, because if you don't go looking for it, you're going to fall in love with your hypothesis. You've got confirmation bias, and it'll skew your decision making. I believe that the single most powerful thing that any of us can do to make better decisions is to write down the questions that you need answered. in order to make decision X, what questions do I need answered? And you don't need a computer for that, you just need a piece of paper. Write down the questions, prioritize the questions, and then go about answering them. Okay, so that's the end of the presentation part, which leaves us plenty of time to do some hands-on exercises.
My name's Nico. I work here at Stevens, engineering background, so I guess for the intro. As far as the market intelligence, I know it's an ongoing process, but based on something you said, it got me a little, I guess, confused in terms of when do you start market intelligence? When you have a market or not? You're saying if there's no opportunity, why bother? So do I have like an idea in my head of what I want to do first and then do market intelligence? Yes. Or do I have to do market intelligence first?
To get an idea? Yeah, you could do it either way. So it depends sort of what you're doing, what your story is, right? If you already have a company, you already should be developing market intelligence on a routine basis. If you're just trying to come up with an idea for a company, you could be gathering market intelligence to figure out, which of my 25 ideas actually has legs and you should spend the next 10 years of your life on. So it doesn't have to start from one particular end. Any other questions? Okay, so let's do the exercise.
Perfect.
So what's your startup?
So our startup is we're building a crowdsourced platform to help people connect to sustainable restaurants.
What's it called?
Ribbit.io.
And that's spelled?
Ribbit as sound of a frog.
2 B's?
Yep. .io.
Okay. All right. So you're going to crowdsource what?
So we're going to crowdsource specific data or information from restaurants that people can connect to.
Okay. So who is your customer?
So we have customers and then consumers. Our customers are going to be restaurants.
Your customers are restaurants?
Yep.
Okay. So let's write customer. In other words, the people who pay you money.
Correct.
Okay. So money flows, hopefully, from customers to you. Okay. And in order for them to pay you money, what do you need to give them?
We need to give them a pool of resources or people who are going to consume our data.
You need to give them data.
Yes.
Okay. So you get the data from the consumers.
Correct.
And then you sell the data to the customer.
Correct.
Okay. So let's make everyone do some work. Does he need market intelligence?
Sure.
Yes.
Okay. What's the most basic tool I gave you today? Make a list of questions, right? Who can volunteer a question that he needs to answer about his market? And we're going to come up with 50. 50. Go ahead.
Just for transparency's sake, I'm his co-founder.
Doesn't matter. Give me a question.
What data do the customers want?
Okay. Which data or what data? Okay, next.
What data is the customers were willing to pay for? I know that's.
Next.
Is anybody else already doing this?
Good. Now we get into competitors. By the way, we're going to have to go back and look at what this means. Yep.
Well, how to package that data so it's like readable for the restaurants?
When you say how to package, you mean how to present it?
Yeah.
Okay.
What value does it bring to the customer?
Very good. Value. What's the value of the data? Right? The value to the customer. Next.
Is the rate that you're charging the customers reasonable?
Is the price right?
Yes.
Right? Okay. So, and when you say reasonable, what do you mean?
in whatever relation to the other competitors.
There we go. So one of the questions you're going to want to know about the competitors is, how much do they charge? Okay, yes.
As a customer, do I get return on investment or not?
So what's the ROI from the data?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is it measurable or not?
I'll just leave it as ROI. We don't need to add measurable. Yes.
So to a certain degree, I guess the consumers are getting something out of it too. So how much is the value that you're providing them?
So what do consumers get? What value do they get? Do you want to answer that question now, just so people get a bigger picture of what's going on in this story? What
Sure.
value do they get?
So they're going to get access to the restaurants that ultimately make them feel good again. So you have a niche.
Let's just say
You have-
feel
you have-
good.
yeah, feel
Let's
good.
just
You
say
have a-
they feel good
You
for
have a
now.
niche pool of consumers who are looking for this type of information that we've received that aren't getting it on our current platforms: Yelp, Google, Zomato, The Infatuation.
But only if you look, there is no discount for the customers.
Well,
Let's stick with the question format, or else it'll get chaotic. So more questions.
What is the size of the opportunity?
Market size, market opportunity size.
Sitting on both.
On which ends?
On both. Consumer
Here and there.
Yeah.
So basically, what's the market size? What's the market? Or market size was what you said. And here is there a market for this information? What's the size of the market for this interaction? Yeah.
Are you going to give the data, raw data to the customers, or you are providing service for them?
So
Like giving a list of those people with this like
raw
contact
data.
information, like your restaurant may like your restaurant, or you are doing the target marketing for them.
okay. Yes.
What area are you going to focus your business? What is the area?
Geography.
Exactly.
Okay. Good. So do you mean both for consumers and for the restaurants?
Yes.
Okay. So where? So the geography. Yeah.
What data and how are you collecting them from consumers?
So we got which data? How collected?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
The geography, what type of restaurant? You're going to cover everything or specific type?
Good. Very good. Type of restaurant. Type of restaurant could be all sorts of sub-questions. What size? How expensive are they? What type of food? And so forth.
They're a chain or not?
Chain, not a chain, right? Chain, food type, size. Yes?
Does your platform have longevity? Like, can you improve on features over time to offer more value?
Okay, so that would be about the platform itself. The tech platform is what you meant, right?
Yeah.
So maybe how should it evolve? Okay.
And just kind of going off of that idea, at what point does the data become saturated where, your market, there's really nothing else you can do? You collect data, you have a whole bunch of reviews, at what point does it become kind of, like, I guess what's the
There's no more need. All the restaurants have all the data they need. Okay. I don't know how to boil that down, so let's go to the next one. Yeah.
Is the market size growing?
Good. Is the market growing? So size, growth rate. Yeah.
How are you going to monetize it?
So it's like the pricing model?
Right, yeah.
Yep. So pricing model. Okay. Yes.
Are there any compliance or social issues around the data that you're collecting?
Very good. Data privacy, data, all sorts of compliance rules, right?
And just from the consumer aspect, like, are they willing to give up that type of data?
Right. Will they give it up? Right? Good. Yes?
Shelf life of the data?
Interesting. Yeah, absolutely. Shelf life. Okay, so I think, I don't know if we got 50 yet. Let's do another 3. Yes?
Is the name available for use, and can it be protected?
You must be a lawyer.
There you go.
Okay, so
I think that's the most important question so far.
Of course. So the name of the company, the name of the product, are they taken? Can you get the URL? You probably didn't have .com, so you went for IO.
Yeah, we already have that, all that.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
How do you verify the data is correct?
Validation.
Data validation, sure. And we could quickly add another 50 questions about data, but let's ask about a different aspect of this. Yes?
Operating costs?
To operate the business.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. So that's, let's say operations. We'll have lots of questions about operations.
Is the idea robust against the competitor, like how fast they can copy if they really want to?
So copying by competitors. Okay, one more. Yes?
It seems to be neglected there. What kind of platform or how are you doing your crowdsourcing?
So physically or sort of technically, how are we going to do the crowdsourcing?
Yeah.
Like give people an app?
There's a lot about the data. but
Advertise on websites.
How are you collecting that? How?
So how to collect, right? There could be lots of different ways.
How to crowdsource, really? I mean, that's the
Well,
whole
collecting
thing.
and crowdsourcing in this case are pretty much connected, right? You're crowdsourcing data, meaning you're, okay, so, yes? The cost of customer acquisition, sure. So, let's put that over here. Cost of customer acquisition. All right, so I suggest you take a picture of this board. Yeah? You want one more? Okay,
Yeah.
one more.
Another thing, just more related to the business as a startup.
Yep.
What is the exit strategy? Which can decide how the business is structured.
Sure, exit strategy. Now, also, what's the fundraising strategy?
Yeah.
Okay, so looking at this, what percentage of these have you already rigorously thought through and answered?
I would say a majority of them. I would say 90 to 95%. Now, when you talked about, that's why I said, how deep do you get into? Now, we're 2 people to go through all of this, is that we can touch on every single one, but there's always more that we can know about each one.
Sure. Which one of these, if he gets it wrong or flies blind, could kill his company fastest? You already have an answer? Okay, go for it.
Copycats, I guess. Because
Okay.
People can just do the same thing.
This one? Yeah?
Value to consumer, value to customer.
Yeah, will they pay for it?
Is there
Somewhere. Value to
Down.
the customer.
Yeah, data value.
Okay. Yes?
Is the rate reasonable, the rate that they're charging?
Because if it's not, they may not buy it, and if they don't buy it, then there's no business, right? Okay.
Is the opportunity? Is there an opportunity?
Do people even want to buy the data, right? Is that up on the board?
Yes. Will the customer pay for it?
Okay.
Rent of data value.
Good. All right. So we have to probably pause on the further. So out of all the ones that we circled, which is the most important for him to know about? No, I'm asking you. I'm asking the room. Okay, let's do it with a vote. How many people think the value of the data to the customer is the number one thing, which if he gets it wrong, his startup will tank? How many? Raise your hands high so I can see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 votes. Okay. Is the rate reasonable? Like, they want the data. We just need to figure out what the price is. Is that the most important thing? Anyone? No. No votes. Okay? Maybe this gets crossed out. Okay, next. The value for the consumers. Is that the absolute critical thing? How many have we got? Raise them high so we give them an honest vote. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We should have had you tell us what you think is the most important before. Okay, now, if there's no value to the customer, they won't input the data. If there's no data, there's nothing to sell. So it seems to me that this is very important. I see nodding heads. So how long did this take us? 10 minutes? Okay. So how many of you entrepreneurs will go through an exercise like this in the next 3 months? I hope all of you. You can do this with your own teams, of course, but you should do it with people who are not enamored and drinking the Kool-Aid of your idea. Okay? All right, so thanks very much for stepping up and being our guinea pig. I hope that you got some value out of this and that your friends got some value out of this. And we are looking for interns. If you are interested at all in the world of law firms and legal departments and technology that's going to change the way law firms find new business, come and see us. And I also have one of my colleagues here from India, Romit, who can talk tech with you guys. Thanks very much.
Do you want undergraduate, graduate?
Undergrad, grad, we judge by the person, not by anything else.
David, thank you so very much. This was a wonderful experience. It was so interactive. We got so much out of it. Really appreciate it.